What's happening, MC Marcus Chapman here, ready to break down show number 11 in the MC 25. This show was done on July 3rd, 2001 on K104, KKDA FM in Dallas, Fort Worth, and it's called MC's Midday Chicken Triumph. Well, that's a pretty interesting name, huh? I've actually changed the name of this show several different times over the years, but it's now officially known as MC's Midday Chicken Triumph, and here is the backstory. Okay, so as I mentioned in a couple of other videos, because this is the third of the three shows that I did at K104 that are part of the MC25. When I first got hired there in December 2000, I was hired to host the 6 to 10 night show. I did that for a few months, and they decided they wanted a team of people because there was a team on the competing station, 97.9 The Beat, and they moved me to 10 to 2 at night. They put me first with a guy named Big Craig, and then they added in Houston Harris, H-Dub, and that didn't work out too well at all. And then I was put on the street team, and I was just on the air on like Sundays. Now, being on the street team was a big step down, especially after being on every day. But what it also did, it gave me a chance to really learn the market. So people have been calling from all these different places around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Plano, Mesquite, Waxahachie, Pleasant Grove, Oak Cliff, Richardson, all these different places. And by me being in the street team, it gave me a chance to actually see where all these places were, and see how the people were living in these places. So it helped me understand the market better. So by the time we got to this July 3rd show, I understood the market. I also understood the K104 way of working the phone lines better. Like when I worked in Indianapolis the previous year, I put a lot of people on the radio. That was my goal, make it sound like a party. Well, K104, they wanted it to sound like a party as well, but they didn't want me to approach it the same way. Instead of trying to get a lot of people on the lines, and having shorter phone calls, they wanted me to talk to the people a little bit longer. So it would be less calls, but the calls would, be me vibing with the people a little bit more. So by the time we got to this July 3rd show, it was a situation where I understood the market better. I understood their way of doing things at that particular station better. And so when I went in that day, I was actually guest starring or filling in for Big Baby Kenny J, who was the midday host. He was on from 10 to 3. And this was a Tuesday. And of course, July 4th, the holiday, was the next day. So Kenny had taken off that particular day, and I was in filling in. And I remember right before the show started, when I got in the studio, because unlike, say, WGCI and WTLC in Indianapolis, where I worked previously, you didn't come on at K104 right away at the top of the hour. So I didn't have an intro and all that kind of stuff. I did for a little bit while I did the 6 to 10 show, but eventually that really wasn't how they normally did it. So instead of me talking right away, you had to be in the studio on time, but your first talk break might have been 8 minutes after, 10 minutes after, 4 minutes after, whatever. So I remember when I was in the studio, I hadn't done the first talk break yet, but the station manager, Ken Dow, came in. I remember him saying, make sure you tell people that you're in for Big Baby. And it was like he wasn't sure if the listeners were going to like me or not in that spot. But alas, the thing that Ken Dow and, some of the other folks around there may have forgotten or didn't realize was that, the thing about midday, it's a different audience. Say, like when you're doing a night 6 to 10 show on Urban Radio at that time, that's geared towards a younger crowd. And so one of the things I remember Kenny telling me after they took me off 6 to 10, he was like, man, you had the adults. The adults was definitely feeling you, but you didn't necessarily have the kids, And if I wasn't crunk enough for the kids or whatever, that didn't matter with midday, because now for this show, I wasn't going to be talking to high school kids and college kids. It was going to be adults. It was people around my age. I was 27 at the time. It was people around my age. No, I'm sorry. I had just turned 28. Yeah, I was 28. So it was people around my age and a little bit older, because that midday is more so the working crowd. And so there was no need to worry whether or not I was going to be crunk enough for the kids, because I wasn't talking to the kids. I was talking to people around my age and older. And so I felt even more comfortable. If you happen to listen to the show at, I believe it said number 23, MC Moves to the Metroplex, when I was doing 6 to 10, or any of the other 6 to 10 shows that I have posted on YouTube from K104, you hear it's like my voice sounds a little bit different. It's almost like I was straining, because it was like, no more for real, K104, it was trying to get a little bit more energy. With the midday, I didn't have to do that as much. So my delivery still is energetic on this show, but it sounds a little more realistic, as opposed to me trying to force the words to get crunk for the kids and all that. I had to do all that. So it came off a lot better. The conversations had a little bit more substance. I was still having fun with the listeners. It wasn't like a topic or anything, but it felt a lot better for me, and it sounded good, and it was a perfect fit for that day. The other thing is, they were doing a contest. Well, it was a whole event called the Platinum Hood Awards, where what they were doing was they were having people call to nominate businesses, neighborhood businesses, to find out which one was the best. And so there was a big award show that we had a couple of weeks after this, where people were, winning the awards for their businesses based on what the listeners said was the best. So every day they were choosing a different type of business. Like one day they might have been picking the best barber shop or the best car wash or whatever. So this particular day I was in there, they were choosing the best chicken place. And I remember saying right at the beginning, that I came on the right day, because back then, honestly, I ate a lot of chicken. I mean, I still like chicken, but back then I ate a lot of chicken. I was like a chicken connoisseur. Okay, so for people to be calling in picking the best chicken place, it just felt like it was perfect for me to be in there that particular day at that time. So, I just remember feeling really good and having a good time with the callers. My breaks were tight. Reggie D, who was the mixer on the station, the main one at the time at least, he was mixing and doing some talk breaks and doing his mix, so that was cool. It was a pretty good show. It wasn't necessarily like, you listen to it now, it's not like I did anything just outrageous, outstanding, but what it did was it caught the attention of K104 management. Ken Down, Skip Cheatham, when they heard what I did that day, it was almost like they remembered why they had hired me in the first place. It was like, oh yeah, this dude is pretty good, and as a result, it was the beginning of the turnaround, because up to that point, honestly, my time at K104 in Dallas had been very disappointing. Matter of fact, at one point when I was just doing the street team, I remember the owner of the station, Hyman Childs, pulled me to the side one day, and he was like, he actually walked with me outside the station. He wanted me to walk with him. He said, MC, I know you're an on-air personality and not a street personality. So if you get something else in another market, we'll let you out of your contract. So that was like a get out of jail free card. It was just a matter of having a place to use it. And I didn't end up going anyplace else. But this particular show kind of reminded them, that I was the pretty damn good personality. So as a result, I felt I did good when the show was over, but what ended up happening is a couple of weeks later when we had that award show, it was on a Sunday. I remember toward the end of the night, I remember Skip Cheatham said to me, oh yeah, you on tonight, I was like, huh? So I ended up taking over the overnight spot, and I got back on every day, and that was a big change. And even though overnight is the least glamorous day part or time to be on in radio, that was the beginning of me having the most fun that I ever had in Dallas-Fort Worth. The 2 times that I lived there. It was definitely the best time that I had during that first time. So it got me back on the air. I was in the studio by myself again, and for the rest of 2001, from that started like July, I want to say 16th or 17th, whatever the date was. From that point on, I had a good time for the rest of 2001. And, I was there until July of 2002. So this show was the turnaround, and it changed things from me me being miserable to me having fun again, getting back to doing what I was doing. So that's why this show ranks at number 11, because it was a significant turning point. You know, I didn't give up on what I was doing. You know, I was trying to get to some other markets. I was talking to people in Atlanta and DC, but it wasn't really nothing popping. Like in 2000, it was a lot of stuff popping, a lot of different jobs. I was up for gigs in Miami and Philly and in North Carolina and DC. It was all these possibilities, and I ended up getting actually hired in Dallas Fort Worth. But yeah, so when this particular show happened, it helped get me back on track. So that's why this is one of the most significant shows I've did in my career. My sound is good. You know, I wasn't trying too hard to be crunk and all that stuff. It was just me kicking it with the people around my age and a little bit older. So, you know, we had fun, and it was a significant show. So this ends up being show number 11, July 3rd, 2001, on a Tuesday from 10 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. MC's Midday Chicken Triumph. Yeah, that comes in at number 11 in the MC 25. So up next, we hit the top 10. And the show at number 10 is also one of the most significant shows I've did in my career. That's coming up next. But right now, show number 11, July 3rd, 2001 on K104 Dallas Fort Worth. MC's Midday Chicken Triumph. Get you some chicken to celebrate. All right?